Greetings, family and friends. Welcome to my channel. This is Personal Governance, and I'm JP Watkins. And today, we're going to talk about responsibility. Yes, I know that's adult language, right? But we're going to break that down into two words: responsibility. Let's think about it. It's something we hear all the time, but let's switch it around. The ability to respond, or the ability to control our response, right? So often, if we're not willing to adapt, to adopt, or to adjust, we're going to be left in the dust. Because often we have a fixed mindset. Hey, look, this is the way I am. This is who I am. So what? So be it. That's just how it is. I don't want to do more. I don't want to learn more. Period. Done. Finished. Right? And we're entitled to that. You know, a lot of times as we get older, they say we get set in our ways. But a lot of times I see people that's miserable because they hand over their happiness, they hand over their power, the control to external forces, to other people, to other entities. You know, for instance, like I see it all the time, and I know you can relate if you haven't done it yourself. You know, you ever been running late for work or running late to the movie, whatever, and all of a sudden you got grandma, you know, going 40 in a 65 lane, you know, and it's driving you nuts. Like, oh, why are you getting on the express? And you getting so mad. He's like, why don't you just drive faster? And then somebody with a different mindset, somebody that's willing to adopt a different mindset will say, why don't you leave earlier? You know it's people out there like that. You know it's construction. You know it's traffic jams, bottleneck traffic. You know it's a lot of things that happen because you've been living long enough to know that things happen. So if it's important enough, adopt a different mindset. Leave earlier. Rather than complaining and getting frustrated and getting road rage over something like that. Like, oh man, I can't, you know, why don't they just drive faster? Why do people do like this? And I get it. We human beings. At some point in time, we all get. It's just like in certain places where it don't snow often, right? And all of a sudden they get some snow, people act like they don't know how to drive. Well, guess what? You already know people gonna act like they don't know how to drive. So what do you gotta do? You gotta drive extra careful for them, because you already know it's black ice out here. If you're in an area like Northeast Ohio or Michigan, you know what black ice is. And you know, a lot of people, you'll see people just because they got a 4x4 truck driving like they crazy, not realizing that you can go fast, you just can't stop. And then when they hit that patch of black ice, they spin out. And as you creep on by them, you see them in the median, you know, with their car turned over. So a lot of times we can't control what other people do. But by having a flexible mindset, by willing to adjust our mindset, that makes it better for us. I can't tell you how many times people do things that get themselves frustrated. Say you got, you know, you got Petty Pete at work. He just petty. You know, he gets into, he likes to gossip. He likes to go back and forth. And this ain't no offenses to if your name happen to be Pete. I'm just pulling a name out of my cap. But you know, he just like to be petty. And a lot of times you get to that place where you're like, you know what? If Pete on that pettiness today, I'm gonna act a plumb fool. So then you go in there. It's Pete. He petty. I mean, it ain't like he in your personal space. Ain't like he putting his hands on you. He's just petty. You know, maybe, you know, you didn't shut the refrigerator all the way shut, or you put the salt in the pepper side, on the pepper side, and he got to make a point to, hey, this don't go here, this goes on the other side, right? He just petty. He just like to pick. Or, you know, some people say OCD. He real particular about stuff. Hey, I want this red one in the red section, this, and you may figure he being petty. You may figure he picking. So now you ready to come there and act a fool. You ready to go there and act a war. Go to war with him, right? So what happens when you go off on Petty Pete? Cuss him out. act a fool. Now the supervisor had to come in there. Now you got to get called into the HR office. And now you done lost your job. And he's like, no, I'm sorry. I just can't deal with it. I can't deal with that. It's not that you can't deal with it. You choose not to. You made a choice. Because you weren't willing to adapt a different mindset. You wasn't willing to adjust. And then I'm not saying that you know, it ain't other ways. Hey, maybe you can go pull Petty Pete aside and say, hey Pete, have a genuine conversation. I know you must got OCD or something, because you this and that. Talk to him. They gossiping about something. Hey Pete, I want to talk to you. You know, I heard you were saying that, you know, you say I smell like sardines and mackerel or whatever. If it, you know, is it something that you need to talk to me about? Is my hygiene offensive? Is my perfume or my cologne offensive? Sometimes it's just the way that we do things. It's not saying that you got to be passive. I'm not saying that you can't be assertive. It's just that a lot of times we get overly aggressive, or we get to where we don't say nothing at all, and then we just explode. We don't address it, and then when we do address it, we go all the way off. We flip all the way out. And now we left in the dust. Same thing with relationships. We don't address it head on. You know you don't like him putting the little heart signs and liking all the little pretty girls things on Facebook or whatever. Drives you nuts. You don't like him being on the social media. Y'all out at the movies or y'all out at dinner and he's scrolling on his phone. And it drives you nuts because you want to be the center of his attention, but you never say nothing. And you get more and more ticked off by the moment. Well, hey, there's two things that most of us don't do. And one is walk on water, and two is read minds. So you got to be willing. Even if you shy and you don't like, hey, I ain't into all that drama, you got to speak up. You know, whatever means that you are comfortable with, hey, sit down. Because a lot of times, if this is your mate, this is somebody you sleep with. If this is somebody you comfortable enough to sleep with, geez, it should at least be comfortable enough to talk to them about what concerns you. Hey, you know, I get a little jealous about this or that. That concerns me. I don't like that. I feel disrespected. Then a lot of times what will happen, we have people on the other end. We have people want to bust your windows, want to put their hands on you, do this. And now she done teed off on you, or she done talked about teeing off on you, or getting her kids to tee off on you, and now you cut her off. And now she's sitting somewhere being lonely, listening to Bobby Womack talking about if you think you lonely now. Why? Because she wasn't willing to adjust her approach. A lot of times it's not just the mindset. It's not that, hey, you perfectly in your right to feel a certain way. But at the end of the day, if you don't want nobody putting their hands on you, how can you justify putting your hands on somebody else or talking about putting your hands on somebody else? Somebody talk about checking you and putting their hands on you, you're going to have a problem with it, as you should. But this is why it's so important to adapt, to adopt, to adjust. Or we're going to find ourselves constantly left in the dust. We're going to find ourselves missing out on opportunity time after time. Because when you operate in red hot emotion, you are hurting yourself often more than others. And a lot of times we get so stubborn, we get so set in our ways that we don't care. You know what? I don't care. This is who I am. This is how I am. That's fine. But don't complain when you're all by yourself. Don't complain 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 X's later. Don't complain 10, 20 jobs later when, hey, man, they always tripping. People always fire me. They always writing me up. Well, if it's everybody all the time, then maybe it's not everybody. Maybe it's the man or woman in the mirror that's unwilling to skill up and scale up, to increase your ability to manage conflict, to manage stress, to manage your movement, to manage your mind, to manage your mouth. And a lot of times we don't want to hear that. I'm grown. I do what I want to do. I say what I want to say. Yes, you can do what you want to do. Yes, you can say what you want to say. It's your thing. Say what you want to say. But guess what? you still got to answer the king consequence. Because he don't care who you are. He don't care how famous you are. He don't care how pretty you are. He don't care how big your backside is. He don't care who you know, who's in your Rolodex. If you live long enough and you make enough mistakes and you burn enough bridges, you're going to have to deal with king consequence. Now, some of us are in more privileged positions than others, so we may not feel king consequence as fast as others. But think about it. Think about the people that's smoking 2-3 packs of cigarettes. When cancer come tapping on their lungs, king consequence. Think about people, overeat, eating whatever, sugar junkies. Hey, you talking to a former sugar junkie. King consequence. Packing on a lot of weight. Diabetes in effect. King consequence. The next thing you know, you start losing, your eyesight. Nerve damage to your limbs. Before you know it, you're losing toes and fingers and arms. King consequence. So you can do what you want to do, but in this world, in this lifetime, it's a consequence. And a lot of those consequences, by just having an ounce of mental flexibility, that can save us a ton of misery. Well, that's my time for the day. In the meantime, persist, believe, and achieve.